Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. I just wanted to say that because I don't get to say it anymore. We need to take a look at a couple more of these equations. I saw some real good work on our seesaw assignment, but I also saw some mistakes. So let's go through a couple more. So take out a piece of paper, write this down, and see if you can't get started on it. So the first thing that we're going to do, of course, is draw a line down through the equal sign. Remember, the equal sign is what balances the two sides. I want to draw your attention to a vocabulary word we've used, coefficient, and I want to point it out because knowing what the coefficient is and what it means is really important in being able to solve these correctly. So the coefficient is going to be the number here in front of the x that tells us how many x's we have. And the reason the coefficient is important to know what it means is not separate from the x. These are not two separate things. We need to remember that this whole thing is a term. Negative 5x is 5 red x's if we were to use the algebra tiles. They're together. They're not two separate things. Same thing here. This is 6 red x's or bars. They're all together. I don't want you to think that you can separate those two just like this. We know the only way we can do that is by using an inverse operation, which we'll do later. So the first thing to solve this equation is to get rid of one of these two x's because we can't have them on both sides. So I usually take the smaller, which would be this one. This time though, I'm going to take this one. And you'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to add 5 green x's or 5 x's. It's the whole thing. Okay, again, it's the whole term to both sides. And that's going to give me, this is 0, thankfully, 7 equals, now remember, this is negative 1x. Now, this is a red x, and we want it to be a green x. So we're going to have to divide by negative 1. On our algebra tiles, that's the same thing as pushing the switch sign. Someone, I think it was Oliver, called it do the opposition or take the opposition or something. And that's right, we're taking the opposite of both sides. It's the same thing as dividing by negative 1. So what I end up with is negative 7 equals x. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next equation I want to look at is 7n plus 6n minus 5 equals 4n plus 4. So write that down on your paper. And again, we want to make sure we know where the two sides of the equation are because we have to keep them balanced. We also want to keep in mind this word coefficient again. Remember what that means. That's the number in front of the variable that tells us how many of that variable we have. We have 4n's, that's one term, 6n's, 7n's, and then these are constants. Oh, also, we need to make sure we add the opposite. So we know we have negative 5. There are 5 red. Now this equation looks a little different than the last one. Why does it look a little different? You'll notice that it looks different because there are 2 n's here and 1 n over here. Now be very careful. We are not combining these. They're on the other opposite sides of the equal sign. But on this side of the equal sign, these are 7 n's and 6 n's. We can put them all together. They're just a bunch of green n's, green x's, if you will. So we're going to combine like terms, and that's going to give us 13n plus negative 5. This side hasn't changed. Okay, now we have an equation like the ones we've been working on. Now the question is, I can't have n's on both sides, so I have to get rid of one of them. Doesn't matter, I'm going to choose the smaller value. Last time I didn't, but this time I do want the smaller number of n's, so I'm going to subtract 4n from both sides. Okay, now that's going to give me on this side, those are gone, and I just have 4. On this side I have 9 n's and negative 5. Then I have to get n by itself, so I'm going to get rid of the negative 5. And to do that, I'm going to add 5 on our tile diagram. That would be 5 green little ones. No, I'm sorry, it would be 5 yellow, excuse me. All right, now we're going to have 9n, that's 0, equals 9. And then our final step, we have to get the n by itself. So I'm going to divide this into 9 groups. You can think of your tiles. We divide this into 9 groups and this into 9 groups. So my final answer is going to be one of these n's is going to be equivalent to 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, one more example. Now this equation looks a little different than even the one before. How does this one look different? You'll notice that it has parentheses here. So we still have an x on each side, but there's a 6 out in front of the parenthesis. And we know, let me draw the line down the middle, we know that means we're going to multiply everything in parentheses by 6. Please don't forget to change the subtraction to add the opposite first. So we know that's a negative 11. Now we can distribute the 6 to both parts. So we have 6x plus negative 66 on this side. This side is still x plus 9. Please remember that if the x is by itself, the coefficient, or the number in front, is a 1. That tells me how many I have. I have 1x. Now I need to get rid of the x's on one of the sides. Doesn't matter which one. I'm going to get rid of the 1x, the smaller. I usually take the smaller amount. Okay, so I'm going to subtract that. That's going to give me 9 equals 6x minus 1x would be 5x plus negative 66. Now to get the x by itself, I need to get rid of what's added or subtracted. So I'm going to add 66 to both sides. Okay, 9 plus 66 is 75 equals 5x. And my final step is to divide both sides by 5. Divide it into 5 groups, basically. So each of these groups, there's 1x here, equals 15 in each group. X equals 15. All right, now you can go to, it's not Seesaw this time, it's an actual worksheet, about 8 problems. Please make sure you show me all of your steps. I've given you all the answers, so if you don't get the answer that I've given you, make sure you go back, and you can rewatch this video too. Make sure you go back and figure out what mistake you made, or come and see me.